James Ernest of the Grueling Truth Radio Network here on T.J.Gholston's Big Ten football show weekly, and we're with Terry Killens of Penn State. Terry, tell us how you got started playing football.
I started playing ball when I was around 7 years old, and I actually, my father took me to a park in Cincinnati called Roseland Park, and he kind of introduced me to it. It was some kids that were actually doing calisthenics, and they hadn't got into equipment yet, but they were just doing like jumping jacks, push-ups, and running plays and things like that. And I sat and watched them for about an hour. And after the practice, my dad said, "You know what they were doing?" I said, "Yeah, they were playing football." He was like, "Would you like to play?" And I said, "Yes." And from that point on, till I retired, I fell in love with the game. I played it, and it was my passion.
Nice. So it was love at first sight.
That's correct.
So
love at first sight. Like I said, I played it growing up in the streets with friends, and then when I turned 7, I started playing for organized ball, and I never looked back.
What youth organizations did you play for?
Well, I started off with the Little Red Machine. Like I said, that was in Cincinnati out of Roselawn, and I played for them up until I was around 11 years old, and then I played for an organization called the Deer Park Cobras when I was 12, and I played for them for a year. And next year I went into junior high school, and I took my 7th grade year off, and I tried another sport, which was soccer. But after my 7th grade year, I went back to football because I had a passion and love for it, and I missed it. And I think I needed that, and it just drove me to play my heart out and be the best, because being away from the game for that one season, even though I was young, I knew that's something I wanted to do in high school and maybe beyond.
Excellent. So yeah, like you said, absence making the heart grow stronger there with
right.
with playing soccer that year. So it wasn't one of those situations where you decided you wanted to become the kicker when you went back to football or anything like that, was it?
No, I was somebody who embraced contact. That's kind of why soccer wasn't really my sport, because I couldn't put hands on people. So you couldn't catch the ball. You couldn't touch it with your hands, and you really couldn't run anybody over, because you would get a yellow or red, even worse, a red card, and be done for the day. So I missed the contact. Soccer was a different sport for me, but it was something I wanted to try. I wanted to try something different, because, like I said, I had been playing football at that time since I was 7. I was 12 years old, and I wanted to change. And I think in the long run, I'm a little bit older now, but as I look back on kind of my career, I feel like that was a very good thing for me, because, like I said, absence made the heart grow fonder, and I knew that was something I wanted to do, and I had a passion for it.
So you got to high school and you're playing at Purcell. What was that like? Was the school very competitive at that time?
Purcell was really competitive as a freshman, and it wasn't all glorified when I got in there. As a freshman, it was kind of hard to break into the offensive side of the ball. I was primarily on defense at the time, and I knew I had a talent to run the ball, but at that time, coaches really didn't see it. They thought I was going to be better suited on the defensive side of the ball. So it took a couple weeks, but once given the opportunity, it worked out, and that kind of put me on my path of, this kid is a good enough athlete, so we're going to play him both ways. So going into my sophomore year, I was given an opportunity to play on the defense, but also run the ball as well.
Nice. About when did they start scouting you for the big-time schools?
I got my first letter around the summer of my junior season, I believe. Can't remember what school it was, but I'll never forget my high school head coach, Herb Weasty, came up and asked me, and he goes, and, you know, pulls me aside in one of the hallways in the school and goes, Terry, did you think you would like to play college football? And immediately I was like, yes. And from that point on, that's when I started getting letters from schools, and recruitment wasn't in full blast at that time, but it was just taking off for me.
So with that, what ultimately guided you or helped your decision to go to Penn State?
So going through the recruitment process, I basically knew how I wanted to approach it. I didn't have anybody kind of guide me. I kind of made up my mind as I went along. I said, you know, I was going to take all 5 of my visits. This was kind of like my plan. You know, sometimes plans, you know, get off track. But my whole goal was to take all 5 of my visits and the schools that I was most interested in that were kind of in my region, because at that time, you know, we only had ABC and, you know, a couple of, ESPN was in its infancy stages, and, you know, you really didn't have every school on national television like they do now. So I wanted to make sure that I was somewhere where my parents could either see me on television or maybe drive to a game.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I kind of chose the region around here, the Big Ten region. So it was 5 schools, actually 4 schools that were Big Ten schools that I was scheduled to take visits to. I went to Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Penn State. And then my 5th school was Georgia Tech. Never made it down to Georgia Tech because they went through a coaching change. Bobby Ross had left, and I wasn't very clear on who the new coach was going to be. So I focused on those 4 Big Ten schools at the time. Took a visit to Penn State. Or before my visit to Penn State, Joe Paterno came to my house one morning and had coffee with my parents. And he actually followed me to school. And I really didn't know much about Penn State at the time. I knew we had a guy from Purcell that went there. His name was Brian O'Neill. He was a senior when I was a freshman. I knew he was having a lot of success up there, and I knew he really loved it. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a good look at him. Joe came to the school. I didn't really know who Joe Paterno was at the time because it was, you know, we're in Ohio. This is Big Ten country with Ohio State and the Buckeyes. So when he came to my school, he stopped people in their path, and everybody knew who he was, and they came out in the hallway like, you know, what is Paterno doing here? And is he here to see Terry? So I was like, well, I better give this school a really good look. So took a visit up there, had a great time. It felt like I was going to be a good fit there. And when I got back, that's kind of when I decided, you know, this is it. This is the place for me. And I let them know that I wanted to come there for 4 years, and I committed.
Nice. So that was what, the junior year or your senior year when you committed?
That would be my senior year.
Okay. So that was after you played all your games, or did you still have any games left you had to play?
Right. In those days, your visits kind of started after the football season.
Oh, okay.
Around November.
Mm-hmm.
So you would go through. You would take those 5 visits. It would be somewhere around the end of November, parts of December, and then in the beginning of January after the bowl games.
Yeah, because that's one of those things that always confuse me about nowadays, how they'll commit junior or they'll commit early senior year, and then, you know, shoot, with the teams, there's still a possibility of an injury or all kinds of other things happening before they even get to the college. So I always thought that was kind of odd.
Well, we're saying that's why a lot of kids do it, because, you know, they're afraid that if they, you know, might get injured, you know, they can lose that opportunity. Some kids know exactly where they want to go. I was just one of those guys who I wanted to experience the whole recruiting process, and you know, I had a strong enough family back in that, you know, they were there with and they were there to help me. and guide me. And within the decision I was going to make, they were going to back me 100%. And, you know, I had times where coaches were actually trying to, you know, pressure me into committing early and things like that. But like I said, my mother and my father, you know, basically told me to be my own man and make up my own mind and don't let anybody guide me into a decision that I'm not ready to make. So I took my time with it.
So it sounds like your parents were very crucial in your development. They were there and very supportive.
Yeah, you know, and it's hard to do it today because I kind of look at myself and try to say and be like my dad. My dad didn't miss a football game. You know, he was always there. You know, from on Pee Wee days, holding the chains of the down box. I could hear it yelling when I was in high school. You know, from the front row when we played at Norwood Stadium. That's where Purcell Marion played their home football games. At that time when I played, and even when I was college, you know, in college, it was 96,000 people there at Penn State cheering us on, but I knew exactly where they were sitting at. So, you know, they were very influential in, you know, my development and my decision making.
Of your high school coaches, who had the biggest impact on you?
I mean, I had three coaches that really had a big impact on me in high school. First and foremost was the head coach, Herb Weasley. I mean, you know, he gave me the opportunity as a sophomore to get on that field and play. When at that time, a lot, you know, underclassmen weren't getting on the field much, and it was a rarity that we did. You know, because Purcell had good teams back in those days. My running backs coach, Robert Brinkmeyer, he just retired from the University of Cincinnati. He'd been teaching there for many, many years. He, you know, guided a lot of these great backs that came out of Purcell to a lot of success there. And another guy, my defensive coordinator, Tom Stickley, he's been a staple at Purcell Marion for over 30, 40 years. I just was at a retirement party, and it was almost like a reunion for him where all the coaches came back, and we were kind of just sitting at a table reminiscing about the 90s and some of the teams that we had and some of the players that came through there, like Ahmad Harris and Kenny Pope, and, you know, just kind of reminiscing.
When you got to Penn State, who do you feel your biggest rivals were the games that you got up the most for?
Well, every game was a big game, especially my freshman year, because we were still independent. We were an independent school, and, you know, there was no BCS or no college football playoff at the time. You know, we weren't playing for a conference championship. It was all about national championship or bust. So every game we went into, when we played Notre Dame at Notre Dame my freshman year, we played Miami at home my freshman year. You know, we played Boston College. We played Pitt. You know, all those teams and schools were rivalries at that time. And then in 1993, we went into the Big Ten, and it changed a little bit because there was a lot of pressure on us because people thought we would come in and just kind of dominate. And, it took some time. It took about a year to be exact. You know, so our rivalries were like the big schools like Michigan and Ohio State. And we had a end of the year called the Battle for the Land Grant Trophy with Michigan State because we both were land grant schools, and we came in about the same year in 1865 or something like that. So, you know, when we got into the Big Ten, it was a little different because now you're playing for not only that, you know, elusive national championship, but also a Big Ten championship as well.
What's your thoughts on the number of national titles Penn State has won? Do you still feel that it's 16, or do you're okay with the fact that they said it's 2 now?
You know, you know what? I'm a realist. Did we win 2? Yeah, we won 2, and that's what's on paper. But, you know, Coach Tunnell has more than a few undefeated teams that probably should have won, you know, some national titles. I was on one of those teams that we thought should have gotten their share of that national title. But, you know, we did what we needed to do on the field because we went undefeated. We went 12-0 that year and won the Rose Bowl and Big Ten. You know, we were Big Ten champs. but the powers that be, the people who actually voted and said this team is the national champion, didn't give it to us. They gave it to Nebraska. They didn't even give us a share. So I don't think that just because they didn't give us that title that we weren't champions at that time. But I won't say that oh, that's our national championship because we didn't win it. It wasn't given to us. But I know I was on a very, very, very good team that went undefeated that year and won the Big Ten, and I'm proud of that. I mean, Coach Paterno had many, many undefeated teams, and if we had a playoff system or something like that back in that time, or the Big Ten was in with the BCS at that time, and number one would have played number two, should he have had one or two or three more national championships possibly? But who's to say? He has the two, and that's how it rolls.
So you like the idea of the new the BCS and the play-in, or the four teams, or do you feel they need to up it to 16?
I kind of like it the way it is.
Or I mean to
right
8,
now.
Yeah.
Simply because every game matters in college football. So every week people were sitting there on the edge of their seats rooting for their team. Now, I really don't like the way you only can get Power 5 schools in there. I wish they would open it up to schools like, you have a conference like the American Athletic Conference who has teams that can play with some of these Power 5 schools. If they go undefeated, they're not even going to get an opportunity. Why? Because they're not the traditional Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Pac-12, Big 12. And you see how the Big 12 is kind of shorter.
Oh yeah, they definitely.
I wish they would give more opportunity to those schools kind of outside of the Power 5 and the traditional conferences. But I like the way it is. Every game matters. It's a little different than basketball simply because you have so many schools that can make it into the NCAA tournament. You're not really paying attention to the regular season until it gets to March, until the tournaments start. Every week matters in college football, and that's great for the sport. That's great for the fan base and the schools.
I definitely agree with you. I mean, the atmosphere is so much better in college football than any other sport. I mean, even in the NFL where, if you win 10 games, you're getting in the playoffs. But in college football, like you were saying, if you lose a game, it could be the end of your season.
That's right.
Yeah, I still think, though, this is my theory, what I'm throwing out there, is there's about 5 major power conferences, so they all get one, and then you have, 3 at large, and do an 18 tournament. That's my dream, though, but it's all good. So, after Penn State, you end up getting drafted in, the third round?
Yeah, so in 1996, I was drafted in the third round by the Houston Oilers, which are now the Tennessee Titans. So I played 1 year in Houston, and then the team basically moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where for the 1997 season, we were the Tennessee Oilers, 1997, 1998. We played in Memphis, Tennessee, in it used to be called the Liberty Bowl. For that first year, we were in Tennessee, and it was kind of strange because I always think back when you think you're a pro athlete, you think, oh man, we're gonna have the finest things, we're gonna fly in the nicest airplanes, stay in the nicest hotels. It was just the opposite. The team, the organization, the club was going through a transition, and I was kind of, I guess, disappointed, lack of a better term, because I had all these thoughts about being in the NFL, not playing, because the playing part was fine, but just travel, the hotels and things like that, and it was nothing like I thought. I was like, well, I had a better deal at Penn State when I was there. But in 1999, they finished the stadium in Nashville. We became the Tennessee Titans. So we had a whole uniform change, name change, and we went on a nice little run that season. Got a wild card berth into the playoffs when we were actually 13-3. Beat Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC title game, and we made it to the Super Bowl that year.
Do you feel that was your most exciting moment in football, or was it one of the games at Penn State?
I would have to say by far Music City Miracle, and that I was a part of that. So that wild card game, it was a wild card round, and we were playing the Buffalo Bills. And the story behind it was we used to practice this play every Friday and Saturday, simply because early in the season we had a similar situation, and we did what most teams do, try to lateral the ball 50 times backwards, and you end up, muffing the ball, and, somebody falls on it, and the scramble time runs out, and the game is over. Well, our special teams coordinator said, we're not going to do that anymore. I'm gonna have a set play that we're going to practice. And we laughed about it. Like, when I say we laughed about it, we didn't take it very seriously, but we're pros. We went through it. We got it done. Everybody just thought, this would never work. So fast forward to the wild card game, and here we are. We're down. We need a touchdown to win. Blah 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 blah. He comes up. We're going to do it. We're going to do the home. It was called the home run throwback. Come to find out, the guy who normally does, catches the ball, he was hurt. His name was Derek Mason. He had a concussion. So we were looking for him on the sideline. Who do we see as backup? Kevin Dyson. Coach throws Kevin in the huddle and says, Kevin, just make sure you stay behind Whitecheck. Ball is kicked. It sets up perfectly. Renzo Neal grabs it first, so that kind of messed it up a little bit. Then he pitches it or hands it to Frank Whitecheck, and Frank Whitecheck throws the lateral. And the Buffalo Bills, they don't stay in their lane. It opens up wide, and there's a whole sideline. And, Kevin has a convoy leading down the sideline, and when he hits that end zone, I never in my life have I hyperventilated before, but that moment stands out because it was just so exciting how big the game was at that time, and how we were going to end up winning this game. It was just, it was overwhelming. The crowd was going crazy. It was just something great to be a part of. And I had a lot of great moments there at the Super Bowl, playing in the Rose Bowl, all that stuff. A lot of great moments, but that is the one that just stands out because I never hyperventilated in the game. I couldn't catch my breath. I was so excited.
I can imagine. Like you said, that is probably one of, if not the greatest play in NFL history. And like you were saying, with your coach and all, you had practiced it so many times, but every time you'd practice it, it kind of had that feel of one of those movies like Varsity Blues or something, where they're like, man, you mean that's the stupid play where I wandered down the field lost, or that's the Statue of Liberty, or those kind of things, but yet it ended up being the catalyst to you all making it to the Super Bowl. So that's amazing.
That's right. Yeah, that is right. Like I said, when we practice it, we would be out there clowning around, laughing. Oh, this would never work. Kind of saying it under our breath to each other. Oh, boy, this is crazy. And lo and behold, we made history with it. And I'll tell you, to this day, I know some of the guys the referees that were in that game who made those calls, and I'm telling you, it's still talked about. If you talk about it in Buffalo, they say it was a forward pass.
Yep.
Everybody in the state of Tennessee says it's a lateral, and a lateral is not illegal. A lateral means it wasn't thrown forward.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Plus, you guys owed them one, because I believe that was the same matchup where, of course, that was in the AFC title game where Buffalo was losing to Tennessee by a ton, and Frank Wright ended up going out and coming back with like the biggest comeback in NFL history. So it's only fair that you were able to do that to them.
That's right. Yeah, and I remember that game. I was still in college back then, but that was they were the Houston Oilers at that time, and Warren Moon was the starting quarterback on that team. And when I got to Houston, it was still a bunch of those guys on that team, and they still talked about it too when I was there in '96.
Yeah, I can imagine that's one of those ones that anytime they'd be playing Buffalo, they'd have that marked on their calendar, like, hey, we need to circle the wagons and not let that stuff happen to us. Yeah, because what would have been Clay Matthews would have been, or not Clay Matthews, one of the Matthews would have been on the team. Bruce. Yeah. Yeah, because they ended up recently doing like a family book that was really good. It was released, a couple months back, and it was all kind of like their stories and whatnot. Because I mean, just how many generations they've been playing football. What was the?
I played with Bruce my entire time at Tennessee, and the family was just a class act, from the mom to the grandmother and the grandfather, and
nice.
His brother Clay. He was in Cleveland at one time, and he was down in Atlanta. So the whole family's a class act.
What were some of the other teammates that you got along well with that that you might have a good story about?
I always tell the one I just pops out of my head when somebody asks me that. I'll never forget Javon Curse's rookie year. His nickname was the Freak, and he could run like a deer. He was strong as an ox, but his hands were the biggest hands I've ever seen on a human being. So we were actually flying to an away game his rookie year, and we were all kind of just on the plane, playing cards, laughing, having a good time. And he was actually drinking a soda. And at the time, I kept thinking, I'm sitting, right in front of him. I'm looking like, why does he keep putting his hand up to his mouth? And his hand was so big that it engulfed the entire soda can. Yeah. And you could not, this is a true story, you could not see the soda can. Because he had his whole entire paw wrapped around it, and it just looked like he was putting his hands up to his mouth like he was faking, like he was drinking, but he actually had a soda can. It was like if I could compare it to something, the little V8 cans that they used to have, and they're skinny like that. That's what a real soda can looked like in his hand.
Dang. Yeah, I mean, he was just such an amazing athlete for you guys, and I mean,
he was. Every accolade he got that year he deserved, because a lot of games, he came up with sack calls, fumbles that, actually, were game clinchers or gave us the ball back so we could go on a game-winning drive. He made a lot of plays for us.
What was the transition like going from Houston to San Francisco?
Well, at that time, Tennessee was going through a transition with, salary cap. It was a bunch of inner office issues that, players deal with that, people don't know about. So money became a factor with age. But when I went out to San Francisco, it was a blessing in disguise. I didn't know how, coming from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast to a whole different team, not knowing anybody. I got in the camp late. I was out of shape, but they gave me an opportunity. And Steve Mariucci, the head coach, was probably in the league, hands down, one of the nicest people I have ever met. He was a great coach. He loved his players, and he would do anything for you. And I actually expressed that to him one day, because he stood up and gave me a compliment. It was kind of like the first time that a coach had ever really did that in the league, and I thought it was strange because you didn't really hear those things from NFL coaches, because they expected you to do things the right way, and so you never really heard those things. So when he stepped up in front of the whole squad and did that for me, I told him in front of the whole squad, wherever you go or whatever you do, I'm with you. I'm on your side. And I told him it had been a long time, but I haven't felt that way about a coach probably since high school. Like when I talked about Kurt Wiese. So playing for Steve Mariucci was a joy. And actually, the special teams coach at that time when I was in San Francisco was Bruce DeHaven. He was actually the coach in Buffalo during the Music City Miracle. So that was a joy because we always used to reminisce about that a few times too.
Nice. Yeah, with that, I mean that. Wow, that small world end up having the other team's offensive or special teams guy end up working with him.
Yeah, that's the one thing about the NFL. If you make the right connections and some people like you, and you might not make it with one team, but I'm sure somewhere down the road you have some type of connection where you can get picked up by another.
And then to finish the career, you end up going up to Seattle. What was your time like up there?
Seattle was okay. I mean, it was. I knew it was getting close to the end of my career. And see, I probably could have hung on for a little while longer, but at that time, I was a dad, for the first time, and I had a young kid at home back in Cincinnati, and I was just, my mind and my heart wasn't really in it anymore, and I was healthy, and I did. When I was finished with my time in Seattle, I was kind of wondering, like, well, am I going to keep on working out routines, or, I'm gonna call it a career? And I think when I just started really looking in depth in my heart, I knew it was time. So I actually didn't finish in Seattle. What happened was I was released by Seattle right around Christmas time, and the playoffs were beginning, and the wild card round went through, and San Francisco actually had a guy injured, so they needed a replacement. So they signed me for the division round of the playoffs. So I actually retired with Seattle, but I finished my career in the playoffs with San Francisco.
Nice.
That was nice. It was nice. It was very nice.
Yeah, to be able to go out in the playoffs, that's the way to do it.
And the thing about that was, we ended up losing that game to the eventual world champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, they had, probably one of the best defenses of all time that year, with a number of Hall of Famers and just. Whew.
Yeah, they had. We can think of three of them right off the top of my head: Sean Lynch, Warren Sapp, and Derek Brooks, all Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm.
Rondé Barber will probably be joining them pretty soon too.
Yeah, that would not surprise me at all if he gets in there, and he, real soon. I agree with you 100% on that. He definitely deserves it. But yeah, that team was just so stacked on defense. That was ridiculous. So then I hear after you retired, you went through an extreme life change, and you went from being a professional athlete to the bad guy. Is that true?
I don't know what you're talking about. There is no bad guy in the profession I'm in.
I don't know. I heard the zebras and all that.
That's right. Hey, I've always been that type that people love to hate zebras, so I'm kind of used to that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I tried my hand at coaching a little bit.
Oh,
and,
cool.
Back at the alma mater, Purcell Marion, and that lasted about a year. So I knew I was done playing football, but I still wanted to be a part of the game. Coaching is such a nomadic lifestyle. I knew that wasn't really for me, simply because you're kind of tied into your head coach's job security. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a head coach and team's not doing well and the head coach gets fired, 95% of the time, that new person who's coming in, he's bringing his own people. So you're kind of tied with that coach. And I know some coaches, it's a nomadic lifestyle. It wasn't for me. So, of course, being a competitive person I am by nature, when I get into something, I'm going all out, and I want to get, make it to the basically top of that profession. I did it when I played, and that has always been my goal in whatever I do. So I was trying to figure out a way that I could remain a part of the game that I love so much, but leave all that pressure with winning or losing kind of behind. And a buddy of mine we had talked about it, and I had told him I don't want to have nothing to do with football. I didn't want to be outside. I was going to start with basketball. Well, I missed the basketball class, and so I looked on website, the Ohio High School Athletic Association website, and it had it talked about becoming an official and had class. So I emailed the guy and asked him about coming to the class and what I needed and everything else, and that's kind of how it all started. So one summer in July, I show up at Milford High School, and that's when I start on this journey of becoming a football official.
So how far did that end up progressing?
Well, right now I'm actually working Division I football, college football, and I love it. It's a passion of mine. It's a lot of work behind the scenes, kind of like what pro football was. I always use the example of how the USA Today used to put the pro football player's salary in the newspaper. And people would go, oh, I can't believe they make that much money. Oh, because they only seen what we did on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't see the hard work and preparation and the long hours that we put in Monday through Saturday. And being an official is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thankless job, and you have to love it to do it. You can't be about the money when you doing something like officiating whatever sport. If you're good enough, all that stuff will come. But you have to start somewhere, and you definitely start from the bottom.
Yeah, you mentioned about player salaries. That's one of those things that, I mean, how the news puts that bad spin on it, because they're always like, well, teachers make $30,000 a year, and they're like, professional athletes make whatever. And the only thing is, though, what's it, about 3 years is the average career there in the NFL?
That's right. It's 3 years. And people be like, well, 3 years isn't that tough. Yes, it is. Because every Tuesday you're trying to make that team.
Yep.
You make one mistake, or if your salary is too much, or if you're injured and you come back from that injury and somebody else is performing better than you are, you might not be back. And you might not get picked up by somebody else. I used to think this math. There's 32 teams in the NFL. Out of them 32 teams, I know at least one team wants me.
Yep.
It doesn't work that way. Because when I turned, that was the thing. When I turned 30 is almost, if you're not a top-tier player like a Tom Brady, like a quarterback, or Ray Lewis or something, I wasn't that. I'm the first to admit, I was a blue-collar second-tier, at least a second-tier player. I never made the big bucks. I made a good living, but I never made the big bucks. So, that 3 years or that 7 years, I did feel like 17, to be honest with you. so, but don't get me wrong, I loved every minute of it, and I cherish. In my older age, I appreciate and I'm thankful for the opportunity I received to be able to play the sport I love for so long and make a living doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not like they were going to go, oh, if the players, cut their salaries, the tickets prices were going to go down or something like that. And we much rather, at least from my perspective, I much rather see the players have the money than the owners who aren't doing, no one comes to see Mike Brown at the football game.
Well, I always tell people, too, this is the business of the National Football League. It's a game, but it's a big business. And anybody who's in business, especially Fortune 500 companies, know the bottom line is always the bottom line.
Exactly. Very true. Yeah, I was going to say, turns out TJ had fallen asleep with his baby, so that's why, unfortunately, he couldn't make it. He just texted me that because I had no idea. I wonder why he wasn't able to make it.
Man, he didn't want to talk to me and reminisce about the old Purcell days.
Oh, nah, shoot. He was all about it. He was excited. He was telling me about how you were going to be on the show and all, and he was looking forward to it. But he's got that little baby. She's like 3 months or something. So I know how that is.
The secret behind that is when the baby sleeps, you sleep.
Exactly.
Most of them babies gonna be up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they get to sleep all day. You don't.
Exactly. So I think that's what happened. She ended up falling asleep, so he ended up taking advantage of the opportunity. Because I kept texting him around 9 o'clock, and I'm like, "Hey, get on here," and never responded back. So I was like, I figured there was something going on because he's usually really prompt. I mean, he's just such a good guy. So shoot, can't blame him there if take a little nap with a little girl.
Oh yeah, I know. I have 5 kids, so I know what it's like, and none of mine really ever slept. So they were always on the move and up late.
Yeah.
They wanted to sleep through the day. Sometimes I thought they were vampires. But
Oh shoot. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, kids can be rough at times and all. Fortunately, my kid spoiled me. I just got the one. He's 6, and he's pretty good at sleeping. He's got some other issues, but sleeping definitely ain't one of them. I'm lucky there. But yeah, definitely. So it sounds like things are going great. Roughing in Division One. Yeah. Do they give you the schedule ahead of time, or when do you find out what games you have?
actually, they only give you so many because so many weeks in advance. They don't give you your full schedule simply because we're graded. It's a process, just like when I played at the highest levels. It's a process. You have people watch you. You're graded. If you're performing well, you'll get rewarded at the end of the year most of the time with the bowl game or the championship game or something like that. So we get a couple games in advance, and then you hope to get some more. So
Nice.
it's good. It's something that I really enjoy doing. It's something I'm passionate about. It's the sport that I love. I'll tell you a story. When I was working I don't work as much high school football around the Cincinnati area anymore because I'm on the road on Friday nights going to my sites. And I had a pretty good season, and I was awarded a bowl game. It was called the Camilla Bowl in Alabama. And two teams were Ohio University and Appalachian State. And one of the quarterbacks from that game, he was the quarterback for the OU Bobcats, and he was. I remember him. I had him in high school. He was a local product, and I had him in high school. And this was his senior year. I had him his senior year in high school when I was working high school here in Cincinnati, and I had him his senior year in college in the bowl game. And I got a chance to chat with him a little bit.
That's cool.
It was a good moment for me because I was like, that was one of the reasons I really love doing high school football around this area. Because we got a lot of good talent here. I mean, everybody knows about GCL and all the schools that are in the GCL and the GMC and all the other local conferences in our area, and we have a lot of good players. And when I was involved in it, we were able to follow. So you knew who the better players are. You kind of knew where they were going to school. We had a guy from a local school just go to Penn State, my alma mater. He's a quarterback, and I got an opportunity to work one of his games early in the season last year. And it's just good to be able to see the talent around here and watch it cultivate, and hopefully you get to watch them at the next level.
Exactly. It's nice to see the kids succeed. Like you said, you got to watch him or referee his games in high school, and then you see him, as you've been successful and as he's been successful in the bowl game.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, another story about officiating. This was pretty cool. A few years back, I got an opportunity to work a high school all-star game here in Cincinnati, East-West game. And it was happening out at King's High School. 20 years ago to that day that I was working that game as an official, I played in it as a singer. And I had kind of mentioned it to my referee at the time because I didn't really think about it and until I really got in the stadium and was getting dressed and I thought about what the year was and what the day's date was. And, the game I was working, I was like, I played in this game. And at that time, when I played, it was at Lockman High School. And my referee, I told the referee a story about it. And unbeknownst to me, he went to the PA director and told the PA director about it. And while we were standing on the field getting ready for the game to start, they announced that. And I thought that was the coolest thing because, like I have many friends that are officiating, and they have many stories about the game and, officiating the game, playing the game and all that. And that was just one of those moments that, I feel like I came full circle. So it was pretty special.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. I mean, that's the dream right there, being able to be a part of every aspect of the sport and make it your life. And wow, to go from being one of the players in the game to being the official in the game, that's neat.
Yeah.
So what's the aspirations for the future? Continuing with college or eventually progressing up to NFL? What, do you prefer the Saturdays? Do you prefer the Sundays? What's your preference?
Well, I always take it one step at a time. I never, like in officiating, you never want to get, too far ahead of yourself. So my motto is one play at a time, one quarter at a time, one half at a time, one game at a time. And whatever happens in the future, so be it. If I ever get that opportunity and get that call to the next level, like I told you earlier, I'm a competitor. I want to get to the top of my profession. Who doesn't? That's why every night, like I got off a call, study group call. When you called to do this interview, you asked TJ, if I was in my books this much when I was in college, I probably would have been some type of lawyer or doctor, biochemist or something. Because some of this stuff in these books, and you have to understand and be on top of your game if you want to be the best. That's what you have to do. So like I said, I'm competitive. I want to be the best. I want to make it to the top of my profession. And if I'm ever blessed enough to make it, because those guys are good, hey, I'm gonna be the happiest guy in the world. But I am so at peace where I am right now and what's going on that, hey, if I remain here at this level, I'm good with that too.
Awesome. So before you go, I want to hear about the big party you all threw last year for the Big Ten championship game.
I was at that party with about 60,000 of my closest Linebacker friends up in Indianapolis. It was an awesome experience to be able to, drive up to Indianapolis and with my son, and he got to experience it with me. Man, it was a full day. We got up. Game wasn't until 8 o'clock. We got up there about noon, and we didn't sit down until we took kickoff. We pep rallies. I got to speak at one of the pep rallies. I got to a fellowship with some of my Navy Lion teammates that I hadn't seen in many years. So it was a great experience. I was kind of nervous in the first half because Wisconsin looked really, really good, and I didn't think we would be able to stop that running game because it was looking really good. But Coach James Franklin made some adjustments at halftime, and Saquon Barkley, looked like the guy he had been looking like all year, and we pulled that victory out. It was an awesome time. I'm hoping to repeat it again in 2017-18.
Excellent.
Maybe with a playoff berth this year. Because I'll tell you, I might be one of the few guys who wasn't disappointed that they didn't make the college football playoffs. They're a young team. I love that they have the success they have, but some young teams don't need that success too fast. And I think they're taking the right steps with Coach Franklin.
Exactly.
To, finally get back to that elite status.
Yeah.
So I'm one of the few, I guess, patient people that
I love what they did getting to the Big Ten title game.
Exactly. Building the success. Yeah.
Yeah, except for the ending of the Rose Bowl, other than that, I love what they did. I was at the Ohio State game, by the way. Many Lions, I would say this, are undefeated against Ohio State when no TK is in the building. And that's any Ohio Stadium or Beaver Stadium.
Nice.
I haven't been to a Penn State Ohio State game that they've lost. Now, I haven't been to many of them. I've been to about 3. And all 3 of the ones I've been to, they've won.
So that's just saying out there that, shoot, if the Penn State fans want them to win against Ohio State, they should hook you up with a couple tickets, it sounds like.
No doubt. They need I need to be there.
Exactly.
That's like it was the same situation. So I was at the Ohio State this past season, Ohio State game. They ended up winning that game. Then I was at the Big Ten Championship. They ended up winning that game. And they were like, "Are you coming to the Rose Bowl?" Couldn't make that game.
Aww.
But, and you see what happens. So.
You seem to be their lucky charm. It sounds great.
Yeah. You know what? Being a born Buckeye, but a Nittany Lion at heart, it's kind of tough around here during football season because all you hear is the Ohio State talking, scarlet and gray, and all that good stuff. But I tell you what, Penn State has an alumni chapter here, and it's a bunch of alumni that live in this area, and they have pride for the Nittany Lions.
Excellent. Terry, you were great on the show. We're definitely glad you came on, and we definitely want to have you on again in the future to discuss more about Penn State and, of course, the rest of the Big Ten and more about the NFL. Does that sound like a good option for you?
Anytime, man. I really enjoyed the interview. It was fun. It brought back some good memories, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
My pleasure. Have a good one.